All right, so today we're going to go over tracings and how to approach these questions. But before that, I have to talk to you a little bit about the basic physiology behind it, because I'm going to break it down in a way that you don't really have to memorize much. You just have to memorize the really broad details, and you should be able to deduce your way down. So in sympathetic system, how many types of receptors do you have? Four. What are the four? Yep, so you have an alpha 1, you have an alpha 2, you have a beta 1, and you have beta 2. And in these tracings, a lot of times what they're going to give you is going to be two pieces of information. And the two pieces of information that they're going to talk about are going to be pressure, blood pressure, of course, and heart rates. So as we know already from physio that like alpha 1, alpha 2, beta 1, beta 2, they all do different things to blood pressure. So let's just break this down first, because you can predict what epinephrine and norepinephrine does later. So let's just break it down. So alpha 1, what does that do to blood pressure? Increase. Why? It vasoconstricts. So first thing, you have to know that for the vasculature, it vasoconstricts. So that's the first one. Alpha 2, what does that do? Bronchodilation. Okay, so, but here's the thing. You don't really need to use alpha 2 in tracings. So, because, do you know why? Because it's so slow working. So like in any of the experiments that they do, they'll never really test you on alpha 2 in terms of tracings. So that's good news, because we don't want to think about things that don't concern us. So for now, you can just cross out alpha 2 for now. Beta 1. Beta 1 is important. What does beta 1 do? Heart rate and contractility. So those are really important. So heart rate and contractility. And then finally, beta 2, what does that do? Vasodilation. Okay. So this is going to be vascular, vascular vasoconstriction for alpha 1, beta 2, vasodilation. So that is the basic concept of it. But let's take it a little further. So alpha 1, so that one's going to be increased blood pressure, right? Because you're constricting, so it's going to be increased blood pressure. And then beta 1. So think about beta 1. What does that do? Does that increase blood pressure? Oh, okay, so it will increase. So the reason why is because blood pressure is a function of, okay, let me just give you this equation really quick. It's just review. Blood pressure equals total peripheral resistance times cardiac output. What is cardiac output? What are the parts? Heart rate and stroke volume. Okay, so stroke volume. Heart rate right away, beta 1 increases heart rate. Definitely will increase blood pressure. So beta 1 will also increase blood pressure. And then finally, beta 2, what will that do to blood pressure? Decrease, right? All right, but here's the thing. Blood pressure has two aspects to it. Blood pressure has asystolic. I'm going to just write a systolic line. I'm going to just put a y-axis over here. And this is going to be blood pressure. And then this is going to be high blood pressure, and this is going to be a low, like that. There's two parts of blood pressure. There's going to be a systolic part, and then there's going to be a diastolic part. And these two are affected by alpha 1, beta 2 in different ways. But let me show you. So this is what I drew on my exam when I was doing these questions, and I thought it helped me. I hope that it will help you too. So first thing, alpha 1. If it constricts, what happens? Total peripheral resistance goes up, or does it go down? It goes up. Okay, so if total peripheral resistance goes up, let's make it easy first. Diastolic. What affects diastolic? Peripheral runoff. Remember Dr. Hamrell, peripheral runoff? Peripheral runoff. So peripheral runoff is based on the fact that, let's say blood went to aorta. How fast does it leave the aorta? You could think of it like that way, because like if you think of, there's very low resistance in your vasculature, so like everything, once it goes in the aorta, there's a really high pressure, it's like whoosh, all out. So if you increase the total peripheral resistance, the resistance of that, then obviously your diastolic is going to go up, right? So diastolic goes up. So let me just draw this, alpha 1, diastolic, you would expect to go up. So if the resistance, okay, what was systolic? Systolic is when the heart is beating and it's pumping. When it pumps against this pressure, that aortic pressure. That's going to be systolic. So like obviously if you have increased total peripheral resistance, that's going to increase too. So in the case of alpha, you would increase your systolic and diastolic approximately equally. So now the question is, beta 1. What does beta 1 do? So is beta 1 affecting is beta 1 affecting total peripheral resistance? No, it's not. It's not affecting the vasculature at all. It's making it contract harder. It's going to make it beat faster. But what does that affect? That doesn't affect diastolic, does it? Does it affect the diastolic? No, because diastolic is going to be your peripheral runoff. Peripheral runoff is a function of resistance. So beta 1 has to be an increase of systolic. Alrighty? So beta 1 by itself is increased systolic. And now finally, beta 2. So now beta 2, you're vasodilating. What happens to what happens to peripheral runoff? Does it go up or down? Down, because all your vasculature is really, really loose. The blood is going to go into the aorta and it's going to just go straight into your bloodstream. That's going to be diastolic. So this is going to be beta 2. I'm going to make another color, beta 2. It's going to bring things down. Alrighty? So those are the 3 main sympathetic ones. There's one more that is going to be parasympathetic. And the parasympathetic one, well, what type of receptors are they? Muscarinic. Okay, muscarinic. What is the thing that stimulates muscarinic receptors? Typically acetylcholine. Now here's the high yield fact. So the high yield fact is that, did you guys learn this already? Muscarinic? You started today. So just know this fact, okay? So I'm going to make big stars over here. Muscarinic receptors in vasculature vasodilate. But the thing is, it doesn't usually exist. So like at normal rest, you are never using any muscarinic at all. You only have that vasodilation if someone physically gives you acetylcholine. If you don't, normally your body, you don't have acetylcholine floating around your body. The only time you have acetylcholine flowing in your body is if someone injected to you. For some odd reason, no one knows why, there's going to be muscarinic receptors on your vasculature, and that's going to make you vasodilate. Very important for these tracings, because they're gonna ask something like that. They're gonna just make sure that you know that acetylcholine doesn't exist in the vasculature, but it does vasodilate if you put it in there. All right, so these are the pieces. Now, all I need you to do is to put the pieces together. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about norepinephrine, because norepinephrine is going to be the easiest example. So, oh, actually, no, I'm going to give you tracings first because I have a little bit of time. So the tracings that I'm going to give you is going to be this. I'm going to give you a little line over here. I'm just going to give you a systolic and diastolic like this. Systolic and diastolic. And then I'm going to say that you put an alpha-1 agonist into this person, okay? So you're going to put the alpha-1 agonist here. What happens to the blood pressure? Increase. Does systolic go up? Yes. Does diastolic go up? Yes. It will look like this. All right? That's the first one. Okay, let's do beta 1. You have a systolic and a diastolic. Systolic, diastolic. What happens to systolic? It goes up. But in beta 1, it's a tiny little bit. It's a little bit. It's going to be tiny, like that. Does anything happen to the diastolic? No. Remember, peripheral runoff. So nothing happens. Next one. So the next one's going to be beta 2. Beta 2, you have your beta 2. I'm going to just make sure that you know that I'm putting it in here. What happens to beta 2? Vasodilate. Vasodilates, blood pressure goes down. Okay, good. So we're going to move our pressure down like that. Sometimes in their little like pictures, they might show like alpha. They might do like, ooh, it goes up like that. Yeah, like the drugs do wear off at one point, but I'm just going to draw it like that just so you know that it went up a certain amount. But like if the drug does wear off, then it will go back to the baseline. Just be aware of that. All right, and then last one, how about muscarinic? What happens? Up, down, down. So these are all blood pressure, remember. And they both go down equally. So now, here's the cool thing. So norepinephrine is really neat. So norepinephrine has multiple effects, and all you have to do is kind of merge them together. So norepinephrine affects several types of receptors. So it affects an alpha-1 receptor and it affects a beta-1 receptor. So now that you know the basic concepts of how to do this, you can deduce what norepinephrine would do. So norepinephrine is alpha-1, so it's like this guy over here. I'm just going to draw a little star over here just so that you can see it. And then the beta-1 is over here. All you have to do is add them up. So let's see. So you know that you have a systolic and a diastolic. What happens if you put a norepinephrine in it? Well, first thing is like I know that the alpha is going to increase your blood pressure. That's the first part. And then I know that the beta over here will also increase systolic or diastolic? Systolic. So the systolic is going to go a little bit higher. And then once that happens, that's what the blood pressure is going to be. So you notice that the systolic went up a little bit higher than your diastolic. Got it? All right, so that's the first one. So the next one is going to be epinephrine. So now epinephrine is an exception. This is the only time you will see anything like epinephrine. So I'm just going to give you, there's a condition in which you have low dose, and there's a condition when you have high dose. What are the receptors for epinephrine? It's going to be alpha-1, beta-1, and beta-2. Now, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do low dose first. Actually, I'm going to do high dose first. I'm going to do high dose because it's an easier thing to understand. So the thing with okay, I'll do a high dose. I already committed. Okay, so first thing is I'm going to do that. All right, so you have your systolic, you have diastolic. Alpha-1, what does it do? Increase both. All right, so it increases both by a certain amount. What does beta 1 do? What does it do? Yep. Systolic, like that. And then what does beta 2 do? It will decrease, right? So overall, the beta 2 might decrease it a little bit. But overall, what you will see is this. Once again, your systolic was going to go higher than your diastolic. Why? Because of beta 1, all right? So now here's the exception. The thing with epinephrine is that beta 2 has really high effect at low concentrations. So when you have really, really low amounts of epinephrine, the beta 2 predominates. So this is what I'm going to show you. So it's going to be low dose. And this, as I said, is an exception. So like the high dose and the low dose epinephrine, there are exceptions. You can always add up the way that I said. Like if there's something that was like multiple, you can always add up. So systolic and diastolic. So what happens? Beta 2 is stronger than your beta 2. Let me just give that. Oh yeah, I'll make it red. Beta 2 is going to have a stronger effect than the effect of your alpha 1 and beta 1. So obviously beta 1 is going to increase it a little bit like that. And then your your alpha 1 is going to increase it a little bit too. But overall, what you're going to see is you're going to see like almost a flat line and then something that had decreased. So let me just draw it how you would actually see it, because that one's a little confusing. So systolic, diastolic. And then this line kind of goes almost straight. Sometimes they show it decrease a little bit, but it's no big deal. And then your diastolic definitely decreases. So don't get caught up on this. I mean, I did a lot of questions, and sometimes they say like, oh, sometimes it's the same as like systolic, sometimes it's diastolic. It's like if you're subtracting and adding a certain like odd amount, you can't really decide. So like some questions, they'll be like a little bit lower, and sometimes they'll just be like, oh, straight across. It's not really, yeah, I looked into that, so you don't have to worry about it too much. Got that part? You guys have any questions? Okay, let me pause.